Hi everyone, and welcome to today's session on youth engagement in global water processes, building an influential movement. So thank you to everyone who is joining us here in person in Stockholm. Thank you to everyone who is joining us online as well. So my name is Elisa Vaillancourt. I am project manager at the International Secretariat for Water, and I will have the pleasure of moderating today's session. So this session has been co-convened by a number of organizations, which are all part of the Global Youth Movement for Water, including the World Youth Parliament for Water, Sanitation and Water for All, Water Youth Network, Valuing Water Initiative, Groundwater Youth Network, Wavemakers United, Swiss Water Partnership Youth, Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation, IAS, and the International Water Association, Young Professionals. So as you could see, there's a lot of people that have been involved in bringing this session to life, and I think this is why this session is going to be so interesting, because hopefully it'll bring a diverse perspectives from different people that have been through different experiences through their water journey. So in 2022, at the 9th World Water Forum in Dakar, the International Secretariat for Water, alongside the Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation and the Senegalese government, launched the Global Youth Movement for Water to bring together in a united voice hundreds of youth organizations that for so long have been working in such a fragmented way in the water space. So since then, fast forward a few months later, now over a year later, and we have 370 youth-led organizations and allies that have joined this movement, representing youth voices for water at the highest levels. So just a few months ago, we had several hundred young people take part in the UN Water Conference in New York. But we also have young people all over the world that they're leading water action at a local, national, and regional level. So ensuring significant youth inclusion at all levels, including the global level, is essential if we wish to create a water-secure world for all. But what does significant youth inclusion actually mean? How do we ensure that we not just go from inclusion, but we move towards significant and transformative inclusion? What does intergenerational collaboration even mean? We keep saying we need intergenerational collaboration, but what does that even mean? What are different examples? Today we're going to try and look back at different examples of successful intergenerational collaboration at the highest levels of decision making in global processes such as the 9th World Water Forum, the past UN Water Conference, and hopefully set a basis to learn from what was done and improve for what's to come. Because I think if, I don't know for you, but for me, one lesson learned from this week is that there's still so much to do. And hopefully us, you young people, we could be those people that hopefully take on part, not all, it's a shared responsibility, but do our part to hopefully contribute to co-creating a water-secure world for all. So to help us set the scene, I would like to invite you to take a look at a short video, which the Global Youth Movement, catalyzed by the International Secretariat for Water, prepared for the past UN Water Conference in New York. And hopefully this will get us excited and energized for today's session.
When it comes to saving the planet, is your glass half empty? Are you feeling anxious about where we're heading? Are you feeling cynical that our leaders are not taking this crisis seriously? Sometimes it might be hard not to feel hopeless. You feel like no matter what you do, it will never be enough to save the planet. And I guess you're right. Alone, it seems impossible to change the world. But let me tell you about our movement and how we are still confident that together, we can fill up the glass. The Global Youth Movement for Water brings together thousands of young changemakers from all over the world to inspire concrete action and bold politics. Young people are proposing and implementing innovative solutions to help resolve the world's most pressing water issues, with many of them receiving great support from allies of all walks of life. We believe that the only way we can create a water-secure world for all is by joining forces and uniting across generations, sectors, and continents. Join the Youth Movement for Water as together we can fill up the glass.
All right, so I hope that got us motivated and energized for today's session. I hope you're all convinced about the importance of this discussion that we're going to have today. So there's been a few last-minute changes, very, very last-minute changes in speakers, so please bear with us as we try to adapt for the first part of our session today. So we're going to move directly to the first panel. The first panel will be looking back. So looking back, presenting a critical review of youth engagement in global processes and political outcomes. So it is now my great pleasure to introduce to you our two moderators for today's first panel. But before I do so, I think Mariana from Sanitation and Water for All is connected online. If ever, Mariana, you are connected and you could potentially come up to the screen. We're kind of putting you on the spot here, but if you're willing to fill in and share your thoughts on this first panel. I'm not sure if Mariana is connected online, or it's potentially under Manishka's name. There you go. Stepping in very, very, very last minute, but since we have you up on the stage, so I'll introduce our two moderators for today's first panel. So Akanksha from the Swiss Water Partnership Youth and Lisa from the Water Youth Network. So the stage is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Akanksha. I'm an environmental engineer, and I'm here today in my capacity as a youth initiatives manager with the Swiss Water Partnership Youth. And I'm moderating this panel alongside Lisa Demidenko from Water Youth Network, yes. And online, we have been assisted with the moderation with Isabella Espindola from IWA. I hope you can hear me, Isabella. Thank you very much for your support. So, the panel, as Elisa mentioned, is looking back. The focus is going to be a little bit on the past, where we look at, over the past year, at global conferences, what were the key youth developments that took place. But more importantly, we are going to focus on the present and critically review how youth engagement has been in terms of outcomes and policies that are coming forth. To do this, we have quite the intergenerational panel here. I would first like to invite Ms. Noémie Plumier. Can we get a huge round of applause for her? Noémie is French and Canadian, currently working as an international environmental law officer at Human Right to Water base in Geneva. She's been volunteering for the World Youth Parliament for Water as the Strategic Partnership Facilitator since 2020. She has joined several key high-level discussions on for the water community, and we're very happy to have you here, Noémie. Thank you very much. Next, we have Mr. Pierre Kistler from Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation. Another round of applause for Mr. Pierre, please. Pierre is the deputy head for STC's Global Program on Water. This is one of 5 STC's programs marking significant contributions towards global challenges. Among all he does, Pierre is also a strong supporter of youth involvement in the water sector, and we're very happy to have you here, Pierre. And we have had a very last-minute change on the third speaker. I'm unfortunately not very well prepared to introduce Mariana, but the youth have stepped in and dynamically have had a new speaker. Mariana, if you can please introduce yourself shortly. And we can also test the system if the audio works.
Yeah, I hope you're able to hear me well. Is that working? Is that working?
Yes.
Very good. So hello, everyone. My name is Mariana Diaz-Simpson, and I work at the Sanitation and Water for All Partnership Secretariat, where I manage the mutual accountability mechanism. And I hope I can contribute to this conversation at this very last minute.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate it, Mariana. So let me begin. We have had the 9th World Water Forum last year in Dakar, and more recently we have had the water conference, the UN Water Conference in New York. My first question to you, the panel, is going to be how effective was the youth engagement at these events? And maybe Noemi, you can start by highlighting some key developments that took place at these conferences.
Can we have, thank you. Thank you for this first question. Well, definitely there's been an evolution, which is very positive. I will even go a step backwards, sorry, before Dakar, and talking about a little bit as well of my personal journey in this youth advocacy space. So I joined the World Youth Parliament for Water after not being elected at the presidential, but I still wanted to be part of this wonderful network and what was ahead, the discussion on the UN water agenda and the UN water decade. So you end up in this new space, right? It's a volunteer space, first of all, as well. And so you don't know the people, you don't even know who the youth is, who all the network are. You know the name, but you don't know the face, right? So then you need to navigate in this youth space of advocacy, first of all, and then you have the actual key stakeholder, key player of the global water governance, such as SDC, Development Cooperation Bank, such as which government are more influential member states more than other, and all those spaces like the World Water Council, sorry, and the World Water Forum, etc., etc. So this is already a challenge as a young person to figure all of this out. So that was just one point that I wanted to reiterate here in this journey, because you can even have studied international law and all those governance systems, etc. You still don't know the people, and at the end of the day, it's about the people you meet on those spaces. So with the support of the International Secretariat of Water, we were a delegation from the World Youth Parliament for Water, coming from several countries. Every 3 years, we organize our General Assembly there with the support of SDC and among other, like the French Agency for Water, Artois Picardie, etc. And then, yeah, we had with the work of the Secretariat of the 9th World Water Forum, organize some session to build and start a global youth movement for water. Which was already great, because it was the first time also that the World Water Forum had a youth space. Could have been a better location, because we are here to talk about the ups and downs, right? So we've learned from that, and this year we are already speaking with the youth delegate, with the World Water Council Secretariat. We have been even applying to be in the coordination team of the different organizers process of the World Water Council. So you learn, right? You're like, it didn't work, but what can we do to make things better? But for that, you needed the first step to understand where you were at, what do you do, and learn, right? Like anything. And in those spaces, this is where you strategize and you find your allies. And then on the road to the UN Water Conference, we found the Swiss Development Cooperation. We found the government of the Netherlands. We had a wonderful Dutch envoy on international water affairs that was really keen on youth engagement, valuing water initiative as well. And then we continued to build the trust and the relationship all the way. And this is where we end up having a quite massive crowd of young people at the UN Water Conference and at the HLPF. I've recently learned from DESA that out of the 20 young representatives on panels, 6 of us was already representing only SDG 6, which is also a big improvement for those high-level spaces. So it was a bit long, but I will stop here.
Thank you, Naomi. Mike? So we have lost Marianne, have you? Okay, not giving into technical difficulties. I will continue to you, Pierre. So you were there at Dakar. Were there any specific mechanisms that you saw in place that ensured that youth voices were not only heard, but also then taken into account for decision making? Did you notice those?
Yes. Yeah, first of all, maybe before Dakar, I think it was clearly the time that we had some youth on stage for quotas and percentage of youth, that we can have some nice figure at the end. I think these times are quite over. We see today you have to invite an elderly man of more than 50 years, so you have a balance on stage, so that's great. And we have seen in Dakar the involvement of youth at different level. I think first of all, it was the first time that a youth space was built. Of course, with the help of some donors, but the youth involvement was really great. They did everything from A till Z. And I think that was great. They organized, they managed, of course with some difficulties, but I think no more than elderly people who say they were professional. So it was really great at that level first. And then I think Dakar was also a turning point for different reasons. I think the youth organization, there was not a dissemination of course, there were many groups there, you were mentioning that before. But we had some coherence. We had some united voices, of course, different voices. That's normal. But I think better organized, better unified, and a greater voice and messages that were developed. I participated in some panels in official sessions where youth were sometimes on stage, sometimes not on stage, but in the room, and the questions were very good questions, and sometimes some difficult questions for the panelists, and it was very good. And we have seen at the end, at the closing session, some messages from the youth that were recorded during the sessions, but also at the youth space, were taking over and mentioned during the final speech of the organizers from Dakar. And I think this was a great innovation at that time. And I think also the creation of the movement, because the movement that arose in Dakar was a good news, because a movement goes apart, it's not organized. That's why it's a movement. And I think, of course, the organization became better, but the movement that arose from Dakar, I think, made some, created some great initiatives all around the world. And I think that's important. So to the presence of youth in the global space is, of course, and the global events are very important, but we need also action at the roots, in the countries, on the countryside, everywhere. And that's why we have some very nice initiative that arise from there. I can only mention one because we are also part of it. It's a 1 Million Youth Action Challenge, where we see some action all around the world in different countries from different people. Not only from youth, also a mix between youth and elderly people. And I think this good mix, cultural, international, and also at the segmented population together are great to observe. So I think yes, to answer in one sentence, I think yes, it was efficient. There were, and maybe yes, to be a little bit critical and to provoke a little bit, we can say, okay, the representation of the youth at the global level are maybe sometimes the same, are educated people, so they speak well and so on, but they represent the voices of all others that can be part of the game with initiative like I was mentioning before, to have a concrete action in the field, in the countryside. Thank you.
Thank you, Pierre. You mentioned questions, and I hope we also get some tough questions for the panelists today. And I really resonated with what you said about being overwhelmed. I think I started getting into this world of youth advocacy pretty recently, and it did seem overwhelming. I wasn't aware of what's happening, and I think movements like these and sessions like these really help shed some light. Marianne, do you have something to add for us here on how effective was the youth engagement in your opinion?
I'm muting myself first. So yes, I think everyone, I think we're in agreement that there was a very strong youth presence in the context of the UN Water Conference, and it's quite interesting to observe as well this movement, because I think very often we know that sometimes this happens in a little bit of a box ticking exercise. But what we saw happening was that if that was the initial intention, it definitely didn't stay there. And congratulations to the youth movements for taking real control and really pushing and being part of the decision-making process. And I must say, even the person before me just mentioned how this process happened very smoothly. We were at SWA, was part of a number of events that we were organizing as part of the UN Water Conference. And I must say that the special event 4 that was led by a number of youth coalitions was actually one of the smoothest process that we participated and engaged in. It was extremely well organized and thoughtful and designed in a very participatory and holistic manner. So as SWA is a global partnership, is hosted also by the UN. We believe that is also part of our, there's also a role for youth to play in this partnership. And SWA has a youth strategy. We're working with youth champions. And the last sector ministers meeting we had held in Jakarta in May 2022. It was quite powerful to have youth representatives on the stage, discussing with ministers at the same level, delivering important messages and key messages, and playing this very key role of pushing further and pushing more, and not being scared of pinpointing what the real challenges are. And again, I think I see the youth movements playing a very important part now again in past UN Water Conference, and it's you're constantly calling for accountability. You're constantly asking, okay, for example, we have this water action agenda. Eliza just seen Eliza do that in a session that happened just before this one, saying, okay, we have this water action agenda, but how are all these 800 plus commitments going to be monitored? What's the follow-up? We don't have a binding, a legally binding document or legally binding commitments. So what's next? So if it started, as I said in the beginning, if this started as a box ticking exercise, it's really gone way beyond that. And I'm very pleased to say that it's probably no turning back. And from SWA side, we really support that, and we will continue to support that as much as we can, both when it comes to delivering messages to the highest levels of power, to the delivery of commitments, and being part of decision-making processes that are, both political and technical. And something else that we really wish to see, and we are having this conversation already with the different youth coalitions, is to see the national level representatives engaging in ongoing multi-stakeholder processes and multi-stakeholder platforms, so that this voice that is doing so well and being so loud and clear at the global level is also reflected at the national level, and that it's also heard, and that is part of decision making, both at the global, but just as important, or even sometimes even more importantly, at the national level. So thank you.
Thank you, Marianne. That was already some answers to my second upcoming question. And I really liked your statement about tick box checking. We've heard that the youth was included, we've heard that they were engaged, but what is the impact that they were able to create? So Impact in terms of the overall outcomes and the policy decisions related to water management and sustainability. Do you have any concrete examples? I believe Marianne started us off with some. What about you, Noemi or Pierre?
Yes. I think my example is also going to build on the remark of Pierre of earlier, making sure that we don't see the same educated people from European countries always represented in those spaces. I will take the example of the UN Water meetings. So the World Youth Parliament for Water, it's actually one of the observers that it's invited to UN Water meetings. And so it takes place most of the time in Geneva or in Stockholm, like the one just last week. And I was based in Geneva, so I was lucky enough to not require any funding to attend those meetings. But the key afterwards is the communication that goes all the way down to the people in your network. So after that, I just disseminated the information, which was there's going to be thematic papers. We're going to be able to participate to that. And this is where we should participate. But in the end, we made the suggestion, the submissions, and it was the African Youth Parliament for Water, which Fatou Embo is the president, who made, how can I say, the inputs that were kept for interactive dialogue 4, and this is how they ended up being in New York on this special event on the interactive dialogue 4 on cooperation. So just to say that yes, even though not everyone can live in Geneva, everyone can afford Geneva, but then if one individual in your organization is at the right place and find out the strategy to end up there, then this is enough. So another successful for us, how can I say, initiative, or to answer your question, was also the task force. We've been joining the task force on World Water Day, World Toilet Day campaign, Accelerating Change, as co-coordinator even. So it was the first time we were included in the task force, and then we actually straight away dived into co-coordinator. So thanks to Aquafed and UNESCO and Groundwater Youth Network, who were also supportive on that. And it was quite a successful campaign. I mean, in terms of data, who was presenting, it's actually the most successful campaign so far of the UN Water. Of course, building on the UN Water Conference, not just to say that all co-coordinators did an amazing job, but so that's it. That's the two examples I'm going to give you.
Thanks, Naomi. If, Pierre, I may ask you a different question on accountability. So a lot of companies have made commitments to the water action agenda, including yours. What are some accountability checks that you've put in place to make sure those commitments are honored?
Oh, yes. Hopefully. Yeah, and one of, I don't remember, 15 or 12 there were, I don't remember exactly. But one was specifically designed for youth. So I think the engagement was clearly there. And maybe on the other side, as donor, in our strategy, youth was clearly a pillar mentioned as youth till 2 years ago, and now we don't talk of youth, but now we see that more of Water Voice, because Water Voice we get the stage further. I think voice is part, youth is part of the Water Voice, but youth is not the only player in that. Because I don't think we have to categorize too much, meaning if we see the results of the conferences in Dakar or in HAPVF or in New York, I think we cannot distinguish between the result from the youth and the rest of the community. I think the part of the results are because of the youth. They are just part of the game and not separated, and we had to segregate them. So I think that's one point, and the other maybe just the creation or the creation of this movement. I think is a result in itself. and this is not everywhere the case. And the other one I see more and more now in the conferences, and so when a youth is speaking and telling something, it's taking as seriously as it would be an expert and with 30 years of experiences, and this is another results I think that can be considered. And less, I think, of course, there is also a risk of instrumentalization, but I think this risk is less and less present as the people knows that the voice of one or another is as important as the other one. Yeah, that's a little bit what I wanted to say. Otherwise, no, I will stop.
That's that's incredible input. So we have heard that the actions have been taken place, the movement was brought forth, and we will have another panel that discusses what's next. But let's give the floor to the audience. We will now have a short Q&A session. Lisa, you will be moderating that for me. Thank you very much. Do you have a mic?
I don't have a mic, but actually we don't have questions from online yet, so I'm waiting for the updates from online. But I wanted to summarize what we've just heard, and before we give the floor to the audience, don't forget that what we've heard right now, that we're past the turning point. So from now onwards, we focus on accountability and how to make it happen together. Any questions to the speakers from the audience? One? Anyone else? No. All right. Please go ahead. Do you mind introducing yourself first before you go to the question?
I'm Nathan. I work for RPS Group, which is a consultancy that provides services to water utilities in the UK. We talked a lot about youth representation on the global scale and the national scale, which is great and really important. Could you talk a bit about how you think we can get a sort of mass movement of younger people involved at the local scale? Because we need younger people represented at every level, you say, as sanitation workers and so on. And perhaps the water sector sometimes struggles to attract them from industries where they might be better paid, for example, in the UK, as in financial services or oil and gas. So how can we ensure that the water sector is an attractive place to work for people at all levels and not just at global?
Thank you so much. Was that question to anyone in particular, to all of the speakers?
All of them, perhaps the private sector.
All right. So, professional gap in water and sanitation.
Yeah, exactly.
Please go ahead.
I would say that there are some initiative with the Valuing Water initiative from the Dutch government that started also to identify what you just pinpoint. It's that there's going to be, I think it was Josh who said he did some projection, like 10 million jobs on the water sector and sanitation sectors, and the education, and that's why also there was a session here launching a global education network, because the offer for the education offer, it's not diverse enough. We know that all those green jobs, blue jobs, name it, depending the blue economy, green economy, whatever, they are going to be crucial on the achievement of the agenda, but just on fighting the triple crisis, planetary crisis. So I don't know if I really answered your question, but for me it would be an effort, a tremendous effort to be put in career development, education, and also diversified, transdisciplinary. I am from the soft science, social science. We need more lawyers, we need more water diplomats, we need more, do we need more engineers? Yes, we still need more engineers, but I've seen a lot of hard science and a lot of data, but it's complementary. Tilly and Wavemakers is here. We need also more artists, more sports ambassadors as well, that also rely on water and hear the voices of the indigenous that are the protector of the biodiversity. All of that needs to be represented, and this is happening at the local level that you were mentioning.
Amazing. Anyone else wants to comment on that?
Yeah, just to add a little bit on that, when we talk about working also in water and sanitation, of course, working in sanitation as a young people, even as an elderly people, it's not very sexy, you know. And so this is also linked to education, is also linked to conditions, and this also linked to the mindset. And I think here we can work also on the mindset, and many things are be done at that level. When you see more and more all the WASH projects all around the world are linked to also education, also linked directly in order to maybe change a little bit the mindset. The other thing is in that frame we also support for instance young entrepreneurs that have some great ideas, and to support these ideas to bring them to scale. Shall it be in the water sector or drinking water sector or sanitation sector? So you have there right initiatives that should be supported, and that we are supported through different partners. And the other one is the initiative, as I was mentioning before, 1 Million Youth Action Challenge, where you have many actions arising from young people all around the world, in sanitation, in providing water, and so on. So many initiatives. I invite you to go on their website. You will see a lot of things.
Super, thank you so much. So we've heard that we have to invest more in the education tools, but we shouldn't forget about the need to have some social sciences practitioners as well with us. There was another question with the audience. 2 questions from the audience, and we have one online. Yeah, please go ahead. And then the lady in the front.
Water Witness International. Really great session, and thanks for organising it. Looking at accountability from a different perspective, we are involved with 2 initiatives, Accountability for Water, which is about citizens holding governments to account on water, and Fair Water Footprint, which is about citizens holding corporations to account on water. These provide brilliant opportunities for linking 2 youth networks and a platform for youth to speak out and be involved and help govern these initiatives. So could you help us navigate the various youth networks that we can work with and collaborate with and signpost who does what? Because that's a little bit hard to find. And the main question is, what support do these youth networks need or want from the global, international NGOs working on these issues? Because we'd love to connect and provide opportunities for the next generation of water leaders.
All right, so we've got a clear request for the cheat sheet of the water use networks, and what do they need, mapping their needs. How would you tackle that?
I think I have to answer that one, maybe. So I would encourage you to reach out to any of the logos of the young people you've seen then, but most specifically on that level, the International Secretariat of Water, which Elisa Vaillancourt, it's, as she was saying, the Secretariat of the Global Youth Movement, because we are a very diverse network. Like we on over 360 water-related WASH organization at global level, at local level, and we have all different needs. Some would be maybe just, I mean, not just a startup NGO or a startup business, SME. Then what else? Some are very global, already institutionalized, like IWA, but they have more engineer and water and sanitation professional profiles. We, the World Youth Parliament for Water, we have very diverse profiles, but we only focus on making sure that the voice of the young people of SDG 6 is heard on water decision-making processes. So it's more of a net advocacy and governance type of work. So it's, yeah, like it's, but definitely reach out to us. We'll help you as well. It's this mapping of all those youth organizations. It's also an ongoing project and initiative we would love to have funds for. So.
Thank you so much, Naomi. Pierre?
Maybe just to add, and it goes a little bit the same direction, because we were, as we had a youth pillar in our strategy, we were also looking for different partners. We tried different things, and at the end we we engage much more in the International Secretariat on Water because they more and more they coordinating more and more all the youth network that we have seen before, and she was just mentioning, and if I'm not wrong, but I was not in New York, but if I'm not wrong, you also coordinated all the youth participants that were in New York, if I'm not wrong. So I think this is a good sign of better organization, of a greater voice also at the global level. So I think it's a good entry point to look for this organization. And that's why we increased the support to this organization.
Thank you so much, Pierre. So see, you have contacts in the room. Just don't run away after the session. We can talk about that. Noemi, a brief remark?
Sorry, I keep forgetting every time I want to say. I want to thank Sarah Breslin, who was also in the room, and she's been a great support for us. She's in the task TOU, so task. Technical Advisory Unit of the UN Water. Thank you. And she's been a great support. Maybe it's because she's young, who knows. So they have lowered the age in the TAU of UN Water, and it works as well so thank you for the ECOSOC, for the HLPF, for the UN Water, and everything we have to tackle ahead.
Thank you so much. That was quite inspiring. And then we turn to the online participants, and that's going to be the last question for the Q&A session. We're running out of time a little bit, but so the question is from Sarah Keener, and the question is, are we systematically investing in scaling up and supporting the type of local and country-level education tools so that young people understand how these resources work in the local area, what is the status of local waters, and what levers they have through advocacy to public officials or through community action, and how we're measuring our impact in this regard? So how do we explain how governance system works to youth, and how do we know if we're doing it well? Marianne? Pierre?
I can step in. As I mentioned before, SWA is a UN-hosted partnership that is working overall with most stakeholder processes, and for that we are supporting most stakeholder platforms at the national level. And I may be wrong because I'm not an expert. I haven't got data to back these up. I'm sure a lot of you in the room will know this better. But I do see a gap in the participation of youth in many of these platforms. And it could be lack of invitation. It could be that, as we know, sometimes these are slow processes, and they're not as systematic as they should, because we're also lacking. Most countries are also lacking funding for the establishment and the strengthening of most stakeholder platforms. But we do see an excellent entry point for youth's voice to be heard and represented. And this could be through civil society organizations, through the participation or through academia, through research and learning organizations. But there is a room that there is the participation be much needed, and certainly you have a lot to bring to the table. But we are seeing there's still a gap. I dare to say even more at the local and national level than at the global level, where we see much stronger representations and much stronger organizations working together around a single theme, even if it's in such a you're not working as a block. We understand that it's very diverse, but the voices are being heard, I think, sometimes more than at the national level, where we still have a long way to go. And this also comes in terms of funding this participation that is obviously not always there available. Thank you.
Point about start to work with the local chapters more. Noemi, I think you had a remark.
Yeah, just a quick one. Again, it's about capacity building and peer-to-peer collaboration, communication. We have been organizing so many workshops on the road to the UN Water Conference for things such as administrative, like you think, that might not be that important, but it was, because if you don't know how to register, how get accreditation, if you don't know those bases, you don't end up there. And this was a challenge on its own when you don't know the process. So that type of workshop we organize, and we haven't done it like World Youth Parliament for Water have done one, IWI have done one, Groundwater Youth, no, we have done this all together with the support of DESA, with the support of UN Water, again, so everyone gained from this process, and also just build friendship, because in those spaces, yes, you find incredible individuals, I found my incredible individuals, and then when we have info, we just text each other now, because you're like, oh, do you know this opportunity, there's been this fund open, and then we are super active in between us on those groups and communication with forward email, etc. So communication is also the key because there's so much things happening, you cannot know everything, and it's a volunteer space again for us. So yeah, we help each other, peer-to-peer collaboration.
Thank you so much. This was a very inspiring panel discussion, and thank you so much for your contributions. And now let's try to work with the local colleagues more.
So thank you so much to our amazing panelists for panel number 1. Since we've been doing a lot of seating today, this week, I'll ask you guys one simple question to get us energized a little bit for panel number 2. I'm copying on the previous session that I attended, so just don't tell them. But so if you believe, I'm curious to see in the room here, and if you're joining us online, you can just add your answer in the chat. So my question is as follows: do you believe that we are going in the right direction in terms of youth engagement in global water processes? So are we improving and are we learning from lessons learned? Or do you believe that we're going in the wrong direction? So if you believe you're going in the right direction, I would ask you to stand up. If you think we're going in the wrong direction, I will ask you to stay seated. All right, I think that deserves a hand of applause. So for those joining us online, I don't know if you could see the room, but basically everyone has stood up. So I think that's great. I think that we have a really optimistic crowd today. And that brings us straight to our second panel. So for this second panel, which is entitled Looking Forward, Building a Roadmap to Catalyze Youth Voices in Global Processes. So for this second panel, I would like to introduce our two moderators. So Kenneth Obayuwana is the president of the UK chapter of the International Association of Agricultural Students, and Ines Breda, International Water Association Youth Water Professionals. So I would ask you to join me on stage and to please introduce your panelists as well.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to lead the second panel discussion today, which is titled Looking Forward, Building a Roadmap to Catalyze Youth Voice for Water. As we have heard in the first panel discussion, lessons learned from our past experience and our events, we are now looking forward to do what is to come and how we can build on what has been to empower youth voice in upcoming global processing, including the 10th World Water Forum. We gather not as a spectator, but as an architect of water's secure future. Our focus is an influential movement and a guiding roadmap. Youth is not just a tomorrow leadership. There is today's drivers of change, eager to challenge norms and inspire actions. Central to our dialogue are three exceptional individuals joining us on the panel discussion. Mohammed, our first panel, from the Wave Makers United. Then our second panelist is Luciana Jendrick, who is joining us online, the youth delegate of the World Water Council. And the third panelist is Joe Ray, from the Value Water Initiative. Thank you for joining us. Each brings a unique perspective on the potentials of youth in transforming water challenges into opportunities. Water challenges into opportunities. Together, we will unveil pathway to lasting challenges. Join us on this journey of hope and transformation, where we will blend youthful energy with experience, all in the service of safeguarding our most precious resources, water. Thank you very much for joining the panel today. So, my first question will be to Mohammed from the Wavemakers United. How can we inspire and empower more young people to actively participate in global water discussion and bridge local water conservation and management efforts to global decision making?
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, before I start answering this question, I heard Pierre say that the water sector is not that sexy yet. So let's first make the sanitation. Well, that's also water sector. So let's make that one sexy first, and then we'll continue. And that's actually what I think, really have to do. To answer this question also, I have to separate it. So on one side, you ask me how to inspire, how to empower, right?
Yes, yes.
So I think for that, we have to make the whole sector, all of it, sexy and show the way forward for the youth. And I think for that, you guys are doing very well. You are really the examples that we want to show. And even for us, you are the examples going forward. And on the other side, what we as organizations do is we provide the tools, we provide the platforms for the students, for the young people to really mean something. We give them the chance to really grow by education. We give them the chance to really make changes by innovation. We give them the platform to really mean something. So I think it's really important as organizations like this to continue with providing these kind of tools, these kind of areas and environments in which students feel that they really mean something and that they can grow, and also provide them the education to grow, because that's also very important, as Noemi just told. It's important to really give the youth the skill set to do this. Then we come to the point where you have the youth, which is operating mostly locally, coming up with local solutions, and we get this to a global stage, and there we hand it over actually to you guys. You guys are the ones who make sure that the youth who comes with something innovative, something important, some very meaning voice, you make sure that they can act in a global decision-making platform. You make sure that they can mean something. And I think you show also the example that it works. We see it. So the other part is organizations like us who are really going into the field, who are really cooperating and interacting with the youth and with the community, should also support you guys. We need to open up all our resources for you guys, because we believe in what you are doing, and we are also part of you guys. I think that covers all of it, and I see also, I want to invite all of you to look at it from a more positive side, because there is a lot of negativity. I see it, a lot of youth washing, but I also see the former youth guys, the organizations, also opening up doors for us, really opening up doors so that we can thrive, so that the youth can thrive. I hope that answers the question.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. Okay, I don't know, before we move to the next question, do you have anything more to add to what you just said?
Yeah, I think the point on opening up doors is an important one.
Okay.
I think there are a lot of youth advocates amongst the established international water policy and governance community, and I think a lot of people who've been working on water for some years are very receptive to the idea of engaging and trying to empower the next generation. So I actually think that young people have come an exceptionally long way in quite a short period of time when it comes to engaging in these global processes. That doesn't solve the local and the national engagement challenges that was raised earlier, but I think internationally we've come a very long way. So make use of people like the director of Water Witness, Nick Hepworth, who asked that question. how can we work together? I think there's a lot of opportunities we can tap into.
Great, thank you very much. Luciana, do you have any more to add to it? Okay, great, fantastic. Okay, then the next question is for Luciana. Thank you. It says, what step can we take to ensure that youth voice are adequately represented and considered in water-related process at local, national, and international levels, especially in the leading up to the 10th World Water Forum? Sorry,
to be
unmute your
part
mic, sorry.
in this great session among these great professionals and inspiring people. I really would like to highlight that the World Water Council, who is jointly organizes the upcoming World Water Forum next year in Bali, sees young people as a very important and strategic stakeholders, and youth engagement and the inclusion of young people is encouraged and mobilized in all thematic, regional, and political levels. And how we should imagine this. So principally, a Bali Youth Plan is being developed by the World Water Council and by the Indonesian National Secretariat, which is the host country for the upcoming forum. And this plan, this strategy, will conceptualize how youth will be engaged through the forum. And this Bali Youth Plan will include 25 youth organizations with a geographical balance. And they're going to soon have their first kickoff meeting in September. On the level of the thematics, you probably know that the main theme for the World Water Forum is Water for Shared Prosperity, and it further includes 6 thematics. During the application process, any youth individuals or youth organizations could have applied, and their application were absolutely handled as any other stakeholders, so they were treated totally equally. And as a result, 12 youth organizations have been selected to be part of the topic coordination group, and their work together soon will start as well. And last but not least, at the political level, a youth declaration will be prepared, firstly during the second stakeholder meeting in October, and this youth declaration will be further developed and co-designed during the World Water Forum, which is, I believe, one of the main outcomes of the forum. And obviously, it's going to include accountability mechanisms, which was previously mentioned, is something very fundamental and something very important. And furthermore, me as a young people, I believe that participating in these big conferences, big events, can be very challenging logistically. So that's why the question of a founding strategy is very important. So that's why we sent a proposal to the World Water Council and to the Indonesian National Secretariat. At the moment, this proposal, it is in a pending stage, but as I mentioned, there will be a kickoff meeting together with these 25 youth organizations. It is most likely that we're gonna have a finalized, a concretized founding strategy that we can build on. And last but not least, I would like to highlight the role of my fellow youth delegates, Jennifer Kirk and Ahmad, whom together we represent the European, American, African, and Asian regions. And we consider ourselves as bridges between other young people and the council, because we can channel the concerns, the questions, to higher levels. That's why we are organizing regional hybrid events, because we really would like to understand the local and regional challenges, potential solutions, and innovations. And I believe that this youth momentum, what we already created together with billions of people, is great, and it holds great potential. And Bali will definitely be a very important stop on this road, but we should not stop here, because we really need young people on the road, because they have a great potential, as I'm sure it was discussed previously, and we really need to achieve a water secure world for all together with young people. Thank you.
Okay, so do you guys have any more things to add to it? Oh, nothing. Okay, great, fantastic. Okay, so Mr. Joe, you are one of the young. You are one of the people. Sorry, you're one of the people
No, young.
I'm
young.
so sorry. I'm sorry.
Young is
I'm
good. Oh,
sorry.
young is. I'm 29 to be clear, for a
Okay.
few more months. So.
Okay. You're one of the people responsible for youth engagement for the UN 2023 Water Conference.
I was, yeah.
Okay. Now that we're looking ahead, based on your lessons learned, what can youth organizations do to amplify their voices in events like the 10th World Water Forum in Bali 2024? What advice do you have for government and other stakeholders interested in supporting meaningful youth participation in a global water forums?
Okay. Yeah, so just introduction. I'm here wearing a couple of hats.
Yes.
So I'm here, first of all, on behalf of Maaike van Ginneken. If you've seen the agenda, she's our new Special Envoy for International Water Affairs for the Kingdom of the Netherlands. She couldn't be here, but I'm here in her place. Yeah, so I was introduced also as one of the advisors to the Valuing Water Initiative. It's a Dutch government program that was set up a few years ago to try to actually engage and empower more communities in water-related decision-making processes. So one of those constituencies was youth, and then as a result of my involvement in that, I then became responsible for the youth engagement component on behalf of the Dutch government that organised the UN Water Conference. So that's just maybe a little bit of useful context as to who is this guy and what's he talking about. Yeah, I enjoyed my sort of performance evaluation in the first panel, right, which was how successful was that youth engagement in the conference. My own sense is that we wanted to try to change the norm, building on what came out of Dakar. And one of the experiences I think that's already been alluded to from the Dakar experience was there is a need to integrate young people at all levels and in all processes. And I think Pierre already mentioned that separating youth off as a separate interest group or a separate demographic and creating a separate space for them, no matter how well-intentioned, can actually sometimes create more distance and less inclusion. And so one of the lessons that we learned from that was, how can we better include young people by default at every level, at every stage, as best we can. So my sense, at least from walking around the UN in New York, was that there were young people everywhere. It's not to say that we couldn't have done more, but through the likes of ISW, the Global Youth Movement for Water, IWA, CWE, other leading organizations, we actually managed to mobilize large numbers of young people around the conference and tried to open as many doors as possible on that front. So I'd like to say two things. One is, I think young people have won the argument when it comes to youth inclusion in global water processes. I think we have a lot of institutional allies. Some are here in this room. You have SDC in the room, you have the Dutch government in the room, you have various other institutions who are absolutely committed to including and incorporating young people in global water policy governance processes. You have the youth delegates to the World Water Council. So my advice to young people would be to use those opportunities. The doors are open. Second, and if I may be a little bit provocative, because I feel we won the argument, I also feel we need collectively as a community to go beyond youth advocacy as an end in itself. There is a need for it, and there are some forums where young people are not included and where the argument still needs to happen. But in places like World Water Week, in places like the World Water Forum, forums like the UN Water Conference, where young people are already in the room, focus on the substance. What can you contribute as a youth organization? Ines has gone viral recently for a very compelling speech at the opening of the IWA World Water Congress, highlighting very eloquently the content contribution that young people are able to make to these discussions. So focus on the content as best you can. And then just finally, advice to other governments or other multilateral organizations thinking about including young people, integrate them at every level by default. Unless there is a very compelling reason not to have a young person on your panel, in your session, in your consultation process, make sure that they are included. Engage with groups like the Global Youth Movement for Water, and let's see where we can go together.
Great. Thank you very much.
Can
So
I
think-
add something to it?
Okay, go ahead.
So adding to this, I would really want to ask to actually also following your communication point is please also share all your expertise and all the possibilities, because we always scream to the elderly that they have to share the experience and the expertise, but organizations like us, but also the community with us, the youngsters, they really need all the expertise. So please become ambassadors, please become the teachers, the masters, but share it, because when we share it, it will also be used in the community. Thank you, that was it.
Thank you very much. So let's become the ambassador. Do you have any more things to add for us?
No, everything is well said.
Fine. So I think at this junction, I will welcome my second moderator, Inas, to take over the question and answer. Thank you.
The mic working? Yes, now it is. Hi, everyone. Great session. What I like about it is that we're looking beyond numbers. Thank you. It's really nice to see that we have a group of people that truly have been doing a tremendous work. I have to say that now I'm a bit, let's say, emotional or in touch with my emotions now that I'm turning 36 in the end of the year and I'll be gone. And what I want to start by saying is that leverage on the fact that all the work that you already put in as youth is just passing to the other side, and that's okay. So if you need us, we are on the other side and at reach, so reach out. Good. Yes. Are there any questions from the audience that I should address first? While you think, I will just put one from the Q&A. Thank you, Isabella Spindula, for the help from the International Water Association. Are you ready? The three of you. So, how can we address generational gaps and stereotypes that might hinder youth involvement? How can we address the generational gaps and stereotypes that might hinder youth involvement? Any thoughts?
Joe, please go ahead.
No, Mohammed, you had a thought.
Yeah, well, I wanted to jump, but then just...
I saw that.
Yeah. I think we should focus more on the actions and what they can do and what the empowerment of the youth with actions than really indeed putting it away like, oh, we are the youth and you are the elderly and we do this and you do that. It's we are really all working on the same things. So if you focus on the actions, what you can reach with it, the fun, the sexiness in it, I think then you'll also bridge the gap, actually, the stereotypes, the negativity. I think we should really let that go.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone else has something to add. Yes, please.
Yeah, two things on that. Break the stereotypes. So figure out what the stereotype is that you feel is hindering you and break it. And if there's a stereotype around youth in global water governance, to speak again very frankly, it is that young people who are advocating on behalf of and in support of other young people don't always then progress that to the next level of content-based contribution. At least that's the stereotype. I don't think it's the case. I think that most of the young people who've started out on a youth advocacy journey have, become subject matter experts and leaders in their fields. And I think that we ought to encourage that. But if the stereotype is that young people are perhaps beating the same drum at each event, well, break that stereotype. Second thing, briefly, if I may, Ines, intergenerational dialogue sounds great. What is it? I don't know what it is. I've heard the idea.
We
I
will
like
hear
the
about
idea.
it. They will talk with us.
If it means a young person and somebody a little more, I don't like this word, elderly. So I'd love to see what a methodology for a proper structured intergenerational dialogue looks like, and I'm sure we can learn a lot from it. But
yeah. Yeah, I agree. I'm sorry. It's really hard for me to be moderating a Q&A and hold my opinion. So sorry. You shouldn't have done this. Any questions from the audience in the meantime? Oh, yes. Please. Could we have some assistance?
Hi. My question is to you. So you spoke of how we've won the argument that youth should be represented in these global events. And you spoke of bringing in substance and content. And I wanted to know, in more concrete terms, what you meant by that. Is it more capacity building to ensure that youth are capable and do justice to when they are represented at these global levels? I see this as more a slow and steady way of achieving this. The second thing I was thinking of is it more mentorship and training of youth before the events by perhaps other experts that are more experienced in the field? That would be more direct, but I wanted to know what your vision of this was.
Take it away.
Well, just keep brief, it's a good question. I think capacity development goes both ways, and I think if you as a young person bringing in a new way of thinking or a new way of doing things, that's something that you need to then engage in dialogue with existing decision makers about. Whether that is in itself sufficient to call that an intergenerational dialogue, I don't know. I mean, maybe I was being flippant, but I would like to see what a structured intergenerational exchange, properly done, might be able to yield. I think it's a very exciting idea. I haven't seen much of it done yet.
I will just say one thing, sorry. So I completely understand that. So for me, how intergenerational dialogues have worked has actually been from personal experience, identifying who are the mentors and references, and actually approach them from heart to heart and just say, I see you. I can feel like you have so much experience in something that I really love. Do you mind just sharing some thoughts with me? And create this link that it's personal, and let yourself create this throughout your career, not being afraid to reach out to those that you have as a reference. So that would be my advice. I think that trying to create a dialogue that is not sincere and based on human connection, it's quite challenging. Okay. I'll jump one question here and then I'll go back to the audience. We have one from our online viewers, Tanya Fu. Can you provide any examples of best practice in engaging youth people, particularly from disadvantaged or underrepresented backgrounds? Are there any other engagement strategies besides hosting workshops? Tough one. Should we go back to online response since we have this here? Any thoughts on that side? It's a tough one. Workshops really work. Mohammed, maybe?
So engaging in what aspect? If you would like to hear, engaging in innovation side. Wave Makers United, for instance, is hosting challenges, global challenges, where we invite the students to attend master classes, first learn about something, and then put this into an innovation, into an idea that you develop to solve a global water problem. So this actually worked out really well, because we reached 200 universities, more than 62 countries around the world, where we really felt that students were empowered and inspired to come up with the idea, and also that the students felt that even when they didn't have the tools to innovate, that they were supported by the structure, because they were linked to a company, they were linked to an organization. So really giving them the platform in which they can come up with ideas, and then providing them the connections to the organizations who have the money, the real big guys, I would say. Well, that works. It works. It's proof.
Right. Thank you for the example. I think it's really nice to have some concrete examples, and there are really strategies that work, and I think universities and research is something that locally works quite well. We had one question here from the audience behind you. I'm really sorry. If we have time. Yes, go for it.
Yes, thanks. Sarah Breslin from UN Water. So I have a question for all of the panelists, which is about the great diversity that we really have in the water youth space. You know, there's a lot of different groups, and that's really, really great to see the engagement. But this also risks fragmentation, while at the same time we are also constantly being asked to go outside of the water box, which then also applies to the youth groups, right? So my question is really, how do you address that fragmentation within the water youth space, and how do you, or are you speaking to youth groups in the climate space, in the biodiversity space as well, and strategizing together with them? Yeah, just that's the question. Thanks.
Very well. We do have a question. This is a nice one because I think we are very much within our bubble. Any thoughts online? You have to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, good. I agree. It's a very great question. And at the World Water Forum, we developed these 6 thematics, and it really tries to address other topics, which is not only the water topic, but climate change, for example, or which I think is very important, tackling the marine environment. So we are having a source to see approaches as well, and even regarding thematics in the biodiversity. And I agree that everything is super connected, and the water is the center, plays a center element in all the topics, but it's also very struggling to include the most important challenges into one.
There is a multidisciplinarity here that also needs to be addressed, but I think it would be great to after have like a report or like just a feedback on how it was to exchange and what was more relevant to the other fields, and somehow how we can make our voices heard on the other side and vice versa, of course. Anything else to add on this point?
Just that water is the ultimate cross-cutting theme, right? So it gives you an entry point into all manner of different sectors, and that, by extension, professional groups. You don't think of themselves as water professionals, but people working on climate, gender, biodiversity, finance.
Yeah.
They all touch on water issues one way or another, so learn their language, see how you can engage with them.
Yeah, and I think that's what we will use to conclude here in just some remarks. Honestly, my biggest challenge has been to try to portray the value of water within other sectors, and I think the problem again is that we call it sector, and yes, there is a water sector, but water is just spread across so many areas that it's so difficult for us to push the value forward because the value is not lingering only on one sector alone, right? So it's on all of us to share the message. I will conclude here, and I think that because of what I heard today, and I feel like, I don't know why, I think this year I'm a bit inspired with everyone being so active and accountable, that I believe that it's really important to make it clear for youth, all these different networks, how to navigate them, where they're located, and how they can get in touch. So my commitment that I will offer here is that in my podcasts, I will invite the different organizations to clarify how can youth bring their voices towards you and which one to find the best fit. So I'll put that on the table as a contribution before I kind of leave this youth step away. Yeah. So thank you very much. I will close here the panel session. Thank you so much for your contributions.
Second panel discussion. Before we move on to the closing remarks, we have what I would like to call our keynote listener, because I think that's in terms of intergenerational collaboration, I think that's a term that I wish that we had more included transversely throughout what we do. Keynote listeners. So we have a representative from the organizing committee of the 10th World Water Forum that is here with us, taking notes and listening very attentively. So I would like to give her just a few minutes to invite the youth from the world to the 10th World Water Forum. So maybe if we could get a mic. You could come up here? Okay.
Hello everyone, let me introduce myself. My name is Putri. I came from Indonesia. I'm a secretary of NOC of the 10 World Water Forum. Thank you for Luca helping us promote 10 World Water Forum. I know that so many water issue right now, and for the next event in the 2024, I will announce that the 10 Water Forum 2024 will be held less than a year. I hope you can join us in Bali. And the government of Indonesia is full swing to make this event in Bali historical moment. As a co-organizer of the forum, the World Water Council will do raise the profile water and disaster in the next forum. And as important milestone toward May 2024, consultant or SGM in October, we will held in Bali, and this meeting aim this meeting aim to the update exchange detailed political, thematic, and regional issue to the have in-depth discussion with the process working group, how to plan forum week with the final deliver, include follow-up action after the forum. For the last thing, we'll look forward to your participation in the 10 World Water Forum process consisting political, regional, and thematic process. This forum will be coordinating diverse action and the implementation of the solutions through priority political agenda and identified primary themes as the regional needs to spare water for shared prosperity. Your participation and cooperation will be much appreciated. And see you in Bali next year. As our minister said, Mr. Basuki, in every session in this World Water Week, he always said that there's a CCTV in this room. So I can recognize your face one by one. He wants to meet all of us in Bali next year. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I think that's a pretty nice invitation to continue the movement and to ensure that the voices of youth are significantly represented in this upcoming very important global process for water. To help us close up this session, I would like to invite two people up on stage with me. So first of all, Sabina Kachi from the Groundwater Youth Network and Sarah Breslin from UN Water, just to share a few thoughts and help us identify what do we need to remember from today's session. So please join me on stage. All right, so there's been a lot of information this week. I think we could all agree that Stockholm World Water Week can be a little bit overwhelming. There is so many people, so many sessions. So we're gonna try and make it super simple in terms of what do we need to take away from this session and bring in our work every day. So maybe I would start with you, Sabina. What were your takeaways of today's session?
First thing is, I'd like to mention is we are very much echoing and very much relating in this intergenerational dialogue in terms of what we were listening to our laureate this morning. He used on, there was a narrative of militant. So yeah, they are talking and defending water in that term. So we are also heading in that direction. So we are also working in water and we are also defending water. So as our seniors are also defending water and we are also doing the same. So let's work together. We are young generation who are eager to learn. Beyond jobs, we need mentorship. So yeah, we just don't want job that we already saw. And we were just mentioning on mentorship, importance of building a meaningful mentorship where we can build upon, right? So yeah, that's something, the intergenerational transfer of knowledge and skill that there is a must. That's a key point here. So yeah, that's one of the key point. And next would be, here I wanted to mention was, we want to build this, what do you say, like this friendship and the function and the work that goes beyond workshops. So yeah, we should go beyond workshop that we have been doing normally, and we should also evolve in terms of how we are functioning. So those are two key points here.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think that really resonates, the peer-to-peer and the mentoring. I think I've heard a lot of people kind of question this week about, there's been so many global water events this year, and I think some of us kind of feel like we're jumping from one to the next, and I heard a lot of young people asking the question, like, what are we doing here? Like, what are we achieving here? What's the purpose of what we're doing? And I think for me, it's the relationships that we build. It's the people that we meet, and it's leaving more inspired than when we first arrived, and taking this energy and bringing it into the work that we do every day. And I hope that after this session, you'll all feel a little bit more inspired than when you first walked in. I'm going to turn to you, Sarah. What were your takeaways for today's session?
Well, for me, it's been really great to be in this room and really listen to what different youth from around the world are really thinking about these governmental processes, these big conferences, and we really take on board some of the good things, but also some of the less good things, right, where we can really improve. And in terms of what the point is, I think for sure we need to find each other. We need to build these relationships. And I think it was quite clear as well that there was a colleague over here as well that also asked that, you know, the UN wants to include youth often, but we don't always know exactly how to do it and how to do it well, apart from, you know, a spot on a panel, which is always great. That's a good first step, but we have to go further than that. So really, really building these spaces where we can have these conversations about, okay, so we had the first UN conference on water in almost 50 years earlier this year. Okay, what happens next? And we all know what needs to happen next. We need to achieve SDG 6, that's what needs to happen. But how can we meaningfully, as the UN, what it is, make sure that we provide these entry points for the youth. So that's my main takeaway, that I want to continue that conversation with all of you in here, because we can't do it alone. And that mapping process that was suggested earlier sounds really great to me.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Sarah, and thank you for being an ally for youth within the UN system. I know it's not always easy, but thank you for being an ally that we can always count on. So we have 2 minutes left, so I would maybe like to turn to someone in the room that would like to share in maybe one short sentence, what is your key takeaway from today's session? I'd like to put one of you on the spot. Yes, please. Yes, please.
From the older generation. I'd like to challenge you to be more provocative. Mm-hmm. That's my message. I'm a Dutch journalist. I'm working in the water sector for 30 years. It's very difficult. On one side, you are a professional, so you have to learn from the older generation. So the older generation has a responsibility to share the knowledge with you. So it's not only you, it's the older generation as well. But on the other hand, it's also you that have to find new ways within the institutes and within all the types of organizations. Every country has its own organization in institutes. To find a new way to get around and achieve those sustainable development goals. I mean, at the opening, there was this woman who said, "It's incredible that we still have women carrying buckets." I think that especially the youth can be more provocative against our generation to say, "You did it wrong. We have to think of something new."
Thank you. Thank you for sharing
that's
that.
my message.
Provocative and creative.
Yeah.
I think those are two keywords we could take away. And maybe as the final remarks, I'll leave it to Claudia.
Thank you. So yes, I completely agree. We can be a little bit more provocative at times, but also regarding the mentorship, I think that's pretty much what we ask normally. But I would invite us, the older young professionals, to be mentors as well for the new generation. Because even though we might age out of the young professionals, we still have a lot of people motivated. And let's remember how we started. We didn't know where to go, who to talk to. So just adopt a young water professional that's just starting out, and let's be mentors ourselves as well.
Thank you, Claudia. I have goosebumps. All right, so I think that was an amazing way to finish off today's session. I would also like to just say that we got the chance to, we've been working on this session for a long time, and I think we've created another nice opportunity of collaboration, but I would also like to just say that there was a really amazing group of young women. I don't know if you've seen, but there's a lot of young women in this room, and young men as allies to young women, because that is just as important. And I just want to recognize that, because in the water sector, I think that we need more the voices of young women, and I think that we often ask, what can young people bring to the table? And I think that diversity is definitely something that we can bring to the table. So thank you so much to everyone that has joined us for today's session, whether it is in person or online. I hope that you feel inspired. I hope that this is just the beginning, and that this has given you either the will to keep going and to push for more youth inclusion, or to start your journey in terms of youth inclusion, and we'll be there to support you throughout that journey. So thank you very much to everyone, and I wish you an amazing end of your day, and we'll see you soon.